The Bible stands as one of the most influential books in history, shaping religious thought, guiding moral compasses, and influencing cultures and societies for centuries. Yet despite its profound impact, it is often misunderstood. Over the years, countless myths and misconceptions have emerged about the Bible, many of which have persisted through generations. These misconceptions have caused confusion and sometimes even led to the distortion of its teachings. Whether stemming from a lack of understanding, misinterpretations, or cultural biases, these myths continue to cloud the true meaning of the Bible. In this video, we aim to clear up some of the most common misunderstandings. We will not only debunk 5 of the biggest Bible myths, but also delve into how the Bible relates to science. From the creation story to the Great Flood, we will examine what the Bible really says and how it aligns with or differs from modern scientific understanding. Join us as we dive into these prevalent myths, uncover the truths hidden within the Bible, and explore the surprising intersections between the ancient text and the world of science. One of the most persistent misconceptions about the Bible is that it serves as a scientific manual, providing answers to questions about the natural world in a literal, technical sense. This myth often leads people to believe that every verse in the Bible should be read as a scientific fact. However, this is not the case. The Bible's primary purpose is not to explain the mechanics of the universe, but to reveal spiritual truths about humanity's relationship with God. When the book of Genesis describes the creation of the world, it's not intended as a step-by-step scientific guide, but rather a theological narrative that emphasizes God's sovereignty and the intentionality of creation. The Bible speaks to the why of creation, why the world exists, and why humanity was created, rather than the how, which is the realm of science. Thus, while the Bible certainly touches on the natural world, its focus is on the purpose and meaning of creation, not on providing a scientific explanation of how the universe works. Another misconception is the belief that the Bible suggests the earth is flat. Some people point to verses like Isaiah 40:22, where the circle of the earth is mentioned, and assume this is evidence of a flat earth. However, this interpretation is a misunderstanding of ancient language. The term circle in the original Hebrew refers to a spherical shape, not a flat one. Ancient Hebrew writers used figurative language to describe the world around them, just as we do today when we talk about the sun rising or the 4 corners of the earth. The idea that the Bible teaches a flat earth is based on a misinterpretation of ancient cultural imagery. In reality, the Bible does not describe the shape of the earth with scientific precision, but rather uses poetic expressions that would have been understood by the people of its time. Similarly, many assume that the serpent in the Garden of Eden is explicitly identified as Satan. While it's common in Christian theology to equate the serpent with Satan, the Genesis account doesn't make this direct connection. The serpent in the Garden of Eden is simply described as a crafty creature who tempts Eve to eat the forbidden fruit, leading to the fall of humanity. The association between the serpent and Satan is a theological interpretation that comes later, particularly in the New Testament, such as in Revelation 12:9, where the serpent is referred to as the devil. However, in the Genesis narrative, the identity of the serpent is not fully explained, leaving room for different interpretations. Thus, the connection between the serpent and Satan is a later theological development rather than an explicit biblical claim. Another common myth is the belief that the Bible condones slavery. Some people point to the Bible's laws about servitude in the Old Testament and assume it endorses slavery as an institution. However, the Bible does not endorse slavery as we understand it in the context of modern history, particularly the racialized form of slavery practiced in the Americas. In ancient Israel, servitude was often a form of debt repayment or a consequence of war, and the treatment of servants was regulated by laws that sought to protect their well-being. For example, in Exodus 21:2, Hebrew slaves were to be freed after 6 years of service, and they were provided with food, shelter, and dignity. The New Testament, especially through the teachings of Paul, emphasizes spiritual equality in Christ, Galatians 3:28, suggesting that while the Bible addresses the practice of servitude, it does not condone the institution of slavery as a moral good. Lastly, there is a misconception that Jesus' resurrection was purely spiritual and not physical. Some believe that Jesus' resurrection was merely symbolic or spiritual, but the Bible presents the resurrection as both physical and spiritual. In Luke 24:39, Jesus invites his disciples to touch his body, demonstrating that he is physically resurrected. He also eats with them, further proving that his resurrection wasn't merely a spiritual experience, but a bodily one. The resurrection is foundational to Christian faith, and it is not merely a symbolic event. It's a real, historical event that demonstrates Jesus' victory over death and the promise of eternal life for believers. His resurrection affirms both his divine nature and the physical reality of the afterlife, making it a key event in Christian theology. The relationship between the Bible and science is a topic of great discussion and unfortunately misunderstanding. One of the most common myths surrounding this relationship is the belief that the Bible's creation account directly contradicts modern scientific understanding. Many argue that Genesis, with its 6 days of creation, cannot possibly align with the scientific theory of the Big Bang and evolution. However, a closer look at the text reveals that the Bible's creation story is not a scientific report, but a theological declaration about the power and purpose of God in bringing the universe into existence. The word day in the Hebrew Bible, yom, can be interpreted in several ways. It could refer to a literal 24-hour period, or it could be understood as an era or period of time. This flexibility allows room for harmonizing the creation account with the scientific understanding of the universe's origins, which suggests a universe billions of years old and a process of evolution shaping life on Earth. The Bible's creation narrative is more concerned with the why of creation, the fact that it was created by God with purpose and intention, rather than the exact method by which it occurred. Another misconception is the claim that the Bible's story of the Great Flood is purely mythical and not grounded in any historical or scientific reality. Some argue that the flood is simply a story passed down through generations, like many other ancient flood myths found in various cultures. However, many scholars believe the biblical flood account is rooted in real historical events, possibly a massive regional flood that impacted the ancient Near East. Archaeological and geological evidence from the region suggests that large-scale flooding events occurred in the ancient world, which may have inspired the biblical narrative. While there is no definitive evidence to support the idea of a global flood, the story of Noah's Ark and the flood serves a theological purpose. It represents divine judgment and mercy, the preservation of life, and the continuation of God's promise to humanity. The flood story is a message of hope, showing that even in the face of destruction, God remains faithful to his covenant with his people. The myth that the Bible is against the theory of evolution is another common misconception. Some argue that the Bible's account of creation directly contradicts the idea of evolution, leading to the false belief that the two are irreconcilable. However, many Christians accept that evolution could be the mechanism through which God created life on earth. This view, known as theistic evolution, holds that God could have used evolutionary processes to bring about the diversity of life we see today. The Bible is not a science book, and its creation story is more concerned with the purpose and intentionality of creation rather than detailing the exact processes involved. The real question the Bible asks is not how God created life, but why he created it. This view allows for the acceptance of scientific theories such as evolution, while maintaining the belief in a purposeful, divine creator behind the process. Many people also believe that the Bible never mentions dinosaurs, which is often used as an argument against the compatibility of the Bible and science. However, this is not entirely accurate. While the Bible does not mention dinosaurs by name, some believe that certain descriptions in the Bible could refer to prehistoric creatures. For example, in the book of Job, there is mention of creatures like Behemoth and Leviathan, which some interpret as possible references to dinosaurs or other large ancient creatures. In Job 40, Behemoth is described as a massive grass-eating creature with a tail like a cedar tree, which some suggest could be a description of a sauropod dinosaur. While the Bible doesn't specifically mention dinosaurs, it does refer to a variety of creatures, some of which may be interpreted as ancient beings. The absence of dinosaurs in the biblical text is not an argument against the idea that dinosaurs once roamed the earth. Rather, it reflects the reality that the Bible was written long before the concept of dinosaurs was known. Lastly, the misconception that the Bible stands on the age of the earth is fixed at around 6,000 years is another widely held belief. This idea comes from interpreting the genealogies in the Bible, specifically in the book of Genesis, to calculate the age of the earth. However, this interpretation is not as straightforward as it seems. The genealogies in the Bible were likely not intended to provide a precise chronological record of history, but to serve a theological purpose. In fact, many scholars believe that the days of creation in Genesis should not be understood as literal 24-hour periods, but rather as symbolic or representative of longer periods of time. Modern science, particularly geology and cosmology, provides compelling evidence that the Earth is about 4.5 billion years old. The Bible does not explicitly state the Earth's age, and many theologians accept the idea that the Earth could be much older than 6,000 years. The focus of the Bible is not on providing a scientific chronology of the Earth's age, but on conveying deeper theological truths about God's creative work and his relationship with humanity. Through all of these misconceptions, the core message of the Bible remains consistent: that God is the creator, that he designed the universe with purpose, and that his creation reflects his glory. While science and faith may appear to be in conflict at times, a deeper understanding of both reveals that they can coexist in a way that enriches our understanding of the world and our place in it. The Bible's teachings provide moral and spiritual guidance, while science helps us understand the mechanisms behind the natural world. Together, they offer a more complete picture of the universe, one that celebrates both the wonder of creation and the awe of the Creator. In conclusion, the Bible remains a profound and timeless source of wisdom, offering spiritual and moral guidance for millions across the globe. While myths and misconceptions about the Bible persist, it's important to approach its teachings with a balanced understanding, recognizing its primary purpose is not to serve as a scientific textbook, but to reveal the nature of God and his relationship with humanity. The Bible's creation story, the Great Flood, and other narratives are often misinterpreted when taken out of context or viewed through the lens of modern science. However, when understood in their cultural and historical context, these stories offer deep theological truths that transcend the limits of time. Additionally, the relationship between the Bible and science is not one of conflict, but rather one of complementary understanding, where faith and reason can coexist, each shedding light on the wonders of creation in its own way. By debunking these misconceptions, we not only gain a clearer understanding of the Bible, but also learn to appreciate the beauty and depth of both spiritual teachings and scientific discovery. If you found this video insightful, be sure to like, share, and subscribe for more discussions on the intersection of faith, science, and history. Let's continue to explore and learn together.